November 30th, 1989. A chilly night in Manhattan, and the city that never sleeps stops dead. Witnesses, ordinary people, stare upward, jaws dropped, as a woman floats into the sky, not falling, not jumping, rising, pulled by an unseen force toward a glowing object hovering above. Was it a trick of the light, a shared hallucination, or something no one was supposed to see? They say her name was Linda Napolitano, an everyday New Yorker caught in a moment that defies everything we know. Stranger still, people who didn't even know each other, on the street, in cars across the city, described the same impossible scene. A beam of light, a silent craft, and her body ascending into it. What if you were there, looking up, watching reality unravel? Why did some claim this story was buried, hushed by those who feared what it might mean? Tonight, we're diving into the Manhattan abduction, a tale that's lingered in shadows for decades. You'll hear from witnesses who swear it happened, explore Linda's chilling account, and face questions that might keep you up at night. Could this be proof of something watching us, or just a mystery we'll never solve? Stay with me, we're peeling back the layers, step by step, without promising answers. Because sometimes the questions are what keep us looking at the sky. Picture this. It's late, just past midnight, November 30th, 1989. Manhattan hums with its usual chaos. Taxis honking, lights flickering. When suddenly, everything shifts. On a quiet street near the Brooklyn Bridge, a handful of people freeze. Their eyes lock on something impossible. A woman, suspended in midair, rising slowly toward a glowing object in the sky. No screams, no wind, just silence, and that eerie light cutting through the dark. Witnesses later said it wasn't a plane, wasn't a helicopter. It was something else, something that didn't belong. One man, allegedly a cab driver, claimed he saw her body outlined in a beam, like she was being pulled by invisible strings. Another, a woman walking her dog, said the craft hovered low, its shape blurred but unmistakable. A disc, pulsing faintly, before it swallowed her up and vanished. What makes this night so unsettling isn't just what they saw. It's that they all saw it. Strangers, scattered across the block with no reason to lie, no connection to each other, telling the same story. Her arms were limp, one said. The light was blinding, another recalled. How does that happen? Mass delusion? A trick of tired eyes in a sleepless city? Or something more, something that slipped through the cracks of a world we think we understand? The air felt heavy that night, they said, like the weight of a secret pressing down. And then she was gone. Linda Napolitano, a name most of them didn't even know until later. A mother, a wife, just another face in the crowd. So why her? What made her the one to drift into that light? To figure that out, we need to step closer, into the life of the woman who became the heart of this mystery. But first, ask yourself, could so many eyes be wrong? So who was Linda Napolitano? Before that night, she was just another New Yorker. A mother, a wife, living in a high-rise apartment near the East River. Nothing about her screamed extraordinary, until November 30th, 1989, when her life, or at least her story, took a turn into the unknown. According to Linda, she didn't just vanish into thin air. She lived something far stranger. She claims it started in her bedroom, sometime after midnight. She woke up, or thought she did, but couldn't move. Paralyzed, pinned to her bed, she felt a presence. Small figures, gray and silent, staring at her with eyes too large, too deep. Then came the light. A beam, she said, poured through her window, blinding, pulling her upward. Was this a dream? A nightmare twisted by a tired mind? Or something that crossed the line into reality? Linda's account gets weirder. She says she floated out of her 12th floor apartment, through a closed window, glass intact, no explanation, into that glowing craft. Inside, she recalls cold surfaces, strange tools, and those beings watching her, studying her. Time blurred. Minutes? Hours? She couldn't tell. Then, just as suddenly, she was back. Shaken, disoriented, with memories that didn't fit. Was she taken somewhere beyond our world? Or was her mind playing tricks? She didn't keep quiet about it either. She told her story to anyone who'd listen, including Bud Hopkins, a researcher obsessed with cases like hers. But here's the question that lingers. If this was real, why her? An ordinary woman, no history of wild claims, what made her a target? And what about you? Ever woken up with a memory that didn't make sense? A shiver you couldn't shake? Linda's tale doesn't end with her words. Others saw it too or thought they did. Let's find out what they claimed next. Now, let's step back to that night, November 30th, 1989, and the people who couldn't unsee what happened. It wasn't just Linda's word against the world. Others, strangers to her, backed up the impossible. Take the two men who claimed to be security officers, stationed near the Brooklyn Bridge. They said they watched it unfold. A woman, floating upward, bathed in light, pulled into a craft that didn't hum like any machine they knew. Their story? Detailed, specific, too specific, some argued. Then there's the diplomat, a supposed high-ranking UN official, who allegedly wrote to Bud Hopkins years later, admitting he saw it too. A man with everything to lose, risking his reputation. Why? Were they all chasing shadows? Or did they glimpse something real? The numbers pile up, over a dozen witnesses, some say scattered across Manhattan, all pointing to that same glowing object. A cab driver, a nurse on a break, a guy just walking home. They didn't know Linda, didn't know each other, yet their stories align. It hovered, one said. The light moved like it was alive. Another swore. How do you explain that? Coincidence? A shared trick of the mind under city lights? Or something orchestrated, something too big to dismiss? Critics pounced, called it a hoax, a bid for attention. Linda, they said, made it up, and the witnesses? Confused, coerced, or complicit. But then why the consistency? Why the details no one could rehearse? The controversy only thickens the fog. Were these people mistaken? Or is there a reason their stories match? Something we're not meant to understand. Imagine standing there, seeing it yourself. Would you speak up or stay silent? The Manhattan abduction didn't fade quietly, though. What happened next might be the strangest twist yet, because this story didn't just end in the sky. So, the craft vanished, Linda returned, or so she says, and the night of November 30th, 1989, slipped into silence. But the story? It didn't end there. What came next only deepens the shadows. Linda claimed strange marks appeared on her body. Scratches, bruises, even a small scar she couldn't explain. Missing time haunted her too. Hours she couldn't account for. Gaps that gnawed at her sanity. Was this evidence of something physical, something that crossed into our world? Or the mind breaking under a story too wild to hold? Bud Hopkins, the researcher who took her case, thought he had proof, x-rays, witness letters, details too precise to fake. But proof of what? Then there's the aftermath no one saw coming. Linda said she was watched, followed by men in dark cars, questioned by people who wouldn't say who they were. The security officers from that night, they reportedly vanished from the story, their accounts buried or retracted. And that UN diplomat? His letter to Hopkins hinted at fear of speaking, fear of what he'd seen. Could this have been hushed up, swept away by hands we'll never trace? So who's behind it and why? The questions stack like bricks with no mortar. Why did Linda's neighbors report odd lights that same night? How come some witnesses changed their tunes, while others clung to every word? This isn't about answers, it's about what's left hanging. Have you ever seen something you couldn't explain? A flash in the sky? A feeling you weren't alone? The Manhattan abduction lingers because it forces us to wonder. What's out there, watching, waiting? Could it happen again, right above us, unnoticed? So where does that leave us today, skeptics, believers, or just curious? Let's wrap this up and see what you think. November 30th, 1989. A night that started ordinary and ended with a woman floating into a UFO, or so the story goes. Witnesses swore they saw it. Strangers united by a glowing craft and Linda Napolitano's ascent. Her tale of paralysis, strange beings, and missing time blurs the line between dream and reality. Then the aftermath. Marks, silence, and whispers of a cover-up. Was it all a trick of the mind, a hoax spun out of control? Or a glimpse into something watching us from above? The Manhattan abduction doesn't give us answers. It gives us questions. Questions that echo decades later, unanswered, unsettling. Could those witnesses all be wrong? Could Linda's scars mean nothing? Or is there a truth out there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to look up? What do you think? Is this a story of the impossible, or just another mystery we'll never crack? One thing's for sure, it makes you wonder what's really in the sky above us right now. If this left you questioning, hit that subscribe button. We've got more tales where reality bends and the unknown creeps in. Share this with someone who's seen something they can't explain. Let's keep asking, keep searching, because sometimes the shadows hold more than we're ready to see.